So my name is Audrey. Over the summer, I worked with Professor Naparowski, and we looked at basically a geospatial analysis of social and water vulnerability in Phoenix, Arizona. And the big idea around this is swimming in the desert. And so there's two major problems that Arizona is facing. And one of the big problems is they are in a water shortage. And there's a lot of neighborhoods that are very vulnerable because they don't have water resources. And another thing is Arizona is a desert-like environment. So it's very arid, dry, and hot. And this makes the area have a lot of extreme high heat and heat inequalities. And so we're seeing that low income and Latino neighborhoods are actually suffering more. So a lot of this research is getting into Arizona water shortage, and most of their water comes from the Colorado River, which is actually in a shortage right now. And one paper that we looked at is Get to Know Your Water, and this is by the Arizona State. And they went to Colorado River water source because groundwater supply was not being supported enough. But on the other hand, Colorado River is in a shortage, so we need to look at how blue space impacts the overall area and see if we can find a substitute. And so from there, we actually looked at a man-made blue space, which is pools. So what we did is we used a geospatial information system, basically a computer model. And what we did is we used vulnerability data and vegetation and redlining zones in Phoenix, Arizona. So what this is we formed two transects, a north and a south, and they run through the Metro Phoenix area. And then we plotted pools. So we used aerial imagery and we went through and we plotted a point for every single pool. From there, we selected parcels, which are just plots of land. So this is what these red areas are on the larger map. And then we generated house footprints. So from there, it's going into these parcels and drawing a box around the house, which is the red box down in the left corner. And then what we did is we went through and we digitized every single house and every single pool within that footprint. And that's where we got most of our data. And going into results, the first one we looked at was swimming and water-rich landscapes. Now, the big thing we found with this is that typically places that had more pools were in areas with irrigated landscapes. So this means that the land is very porous and there's a lot of infiltration that could happen. And this is an area where in the dark red or the darker colors show more pools. And what we saw was that a river or the Salt River runs through this area and there's a bunch of parks in this area. And it's showing that with more pools, you're next to these areas that are pretty valuable in the sense that they have blue space and green space. And a lot of people believe that there's a certain sense of value and luxury living next to these areas. And so the next thing we went into, which is a really big break in the research that we found, was looking at vulnerability with the number of pools, the pool area, and then also vegetation and green and blue space. And every single variable had the same exact result. So as vulnerability increased, so they were getting more vulnerable, all of these factors decreased, which was a really big thing to kind of support our theory. And going into the second thing, and the really big thing as well, was looking at redlining zones or neighborhoods and comparing A, which are neighborhoods that are pretty set where loaners will give the maximum loans, and then looking at D, which is very vulnerable. And these areas are where those low income and Latino families are living. And the big thing is going from A, you have barely any urban heat islands or barely any high levels of heat. You have a lot more green space, more pools, and a lesser vulnerability. And then going into D, you just see those numbers shoot up, which is in this table. And you just see those numbers shoot up from really low to really high. And so kind of going into the big picture, Arizona is going through a drought. Their water source is going through a drought. And the big thing is there's climate change going on. So going from 2018 to 2021, Arizona's drought numbers have been becoming exponentially higher. And climate change has been causing Arizona's heat to actually increase over time. And so what this really is looking at is showing that blue space has a big impact on an area, on the environment. And thank you. And right now we are actually in the process of finishing up writing the actual report for it.